Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are starting a new segment, the TV Corner. I am so excited to have this segment because there are like 1,000 shows, episodes, seasons that I want to review and talk about, and plenty coming up within the next year, especially that I'm just so excited to talk about. So let's dive right into it because what better way to start off this segment than with a beast of a show, a legacy of a show that happens to be one of my favorites and happens to have just ended. Supernatural. I'm actually going to open up this segment with a 3-part video of Supernatural. The first video is going to be talking about season 15 kind of as a whole, like a review. The second episode is going to be a review of just the last episode because I have a ton of thoughts about that. And then the third one is going to be an in defense of Supernatural. So I have a ton of thoughts on the season 15, so let's just get right down into it. Obviously, there are going to be major spoilers, so if you have not seen season 15, stop now. Season 15 of Supernatural is its last season, and the fact that it ran this long is, it's great, but it's also insane. Just the fact that it has 320 some episodes. It's incredible. It's like a phenomenon now. And season 15 deals with the Winchesters battling their probably biggest enemy ever, God himself. I know that there were a lot of people who didn't really like the whole God being the last villain thing, including my mom. She wasn't a huge fan of it. Personally, I thought it was great. That just makes for such an epic finale, is going up against God himself, who's kind of been woven through the series overall, and now is the final person to be in their way. And it not only is it just such an interesting concept, but once it's over, we've had season after season, and every time there's been something else that comes up that they have to deal with the next season. Well, how do you finally believe that something can be over in Supernatural? That's the whole thing. Supernatural never dies. How do you finally have that finality? Is if God's writing all of the stuff, and the stuff isn't being written anymore because maybe you've defeated God. That's it. And now we can say, yeah, it's over. And so I just thought that was a brilliant concept. I know some people didn't like it, but I thought it was a really, really good idea. Yes, it does suck that Chuck kind of became a dick, but now there are about roughly 5 sort of sections to this season, not including the last episode. Apocalypse 2.0, the return of Chuck and everyone else, normal Winchesters, what I like to call the lull, and then the final showdown. So let's break these down a little bit. Apocalypse 2.0, really cool idea. I didn't even think about the fact that it really was kind of like an apocalypse when it first started. I thought it was just God messing with them, but they kept calling it like the second apocalypse. Now, it's a 3-part kind of episode. It's the first 3 episodes, which is cool because it's like this major event. But I don't know if you could call it an apocalypse. It really is just like the one section. They kind of closed it off, but why didn't Chuck then bring up people from, zombies and monsters from the graves and people out of hell everywhere? Why just that one space? You can't really call it an apocalypse if it's really just contained to like that one town. Now, it was a really cool set of episodes. We got to see Kevin again, which was really awesome because he got pulled out. There were obviously allusions to other things that could have come out of hell, which we'll talk about later, which is a really cool setup. And, we have Catch and Rowena, which was a really interesting dynamic to have both of them. And then obviously the fact that they, both die was very heartbreaking. And it was kind of this intro to, we're going to have a lot of people come back and probably a lot of people die. And then we have Jack as the Balthagor, not Balthazar, Balrog. He is a demon. And while that was interesting, I was like, okay, I could have taken or left that. But I think the whole apocalypse thing was interesting, just a little underwhelming, especially considering by now, with Supernatural having been on the CW for a while, the monsters have gotten very cheesy. Let's just call a spade a spade. They've gotten pretty right in your face. It's daylight, and so it was really cool to have Bloody Mary and the woman in white and everything. But instead of having ghosts like scare you, you have ghosts having like meetings. Then we have the return of Chuck, which actually includes some standalone episodes, which were very, very good. The vampire episode in particular, with the kid, and we didn't realize it was him till the end, and then it has the parents kind of trying to protect him, and then they have to go out in the woods and and kill him, but it's kind of this mutual, like, I know this has to be done. That was a really good episode. Besides that, though, we have a lot that happens in the next few episodes after that. I mean, we have just person after person coming back. You have Becky. Chuck goes to visit Becky, who is awesome now. Obviously, Lilith coming in. Like, what the frick? Like, that was very out of left field, and I was kind of here for it. I mean, honestly, at this point, after season 13, I was like, okay, we're just gonna throw out, any sort of canon or whatever. Let's just see these people. It's fine. And then, of course, I'm so glad they addressed it. Michael and Adam. I mean, we finally, if there was anything we had to wrap up, it was Adam. And he finally comes out with Michael, and they're kind of together, which is like, okay, why didn't Michael just take it out on Adam this whole time? I don't quite believe that he wouldn't have, but it was so, thank God. And then you also have Eileen coming back, and Eileen with Sam, which is awesome. And you have that episode where Dean finds, one of his friends in this kind of roadhouse, and they start singing, and Jensen's voice is... So they just had a slew of really good episodes up till the mid-season finale, which was also really great. And the one after that, which talked about, possibly being able to contain Chuck, and also possible futures that, could be happening. Plus, if that wasn't enough, then we get all these possible story endings that Chuck comes up with that have to do with maybe the Mark, maybe Demon Blood, maybe Sam loses his soul. Benny's there? I mean, there's just so much cool stuff happening, and that's like really hyping people up. Then we get to this kind of interesting midpoint where we get Sam and Dean as normal people. They're like normal heroes. They're not like the heroic, who like get invincible. They have real flaws, and that was an interesting concept, because I even said to my mom, like the week before that first episode of the section premiered, that I was like, I would just love to see one episode where they're just bumming around the bunker and see all these little cool things that they have and all the different rooms that they have. And then the next episode, it was like, man, you guys are like having dental problems, and you're doing laundry, and you're spilling pots and stuff. I thought that was really funny. And it was a very interesting set of episodes that made, I think, for not only having it be Sam and Dean together like old times, but they were very funny. Now, this next section, I would have named something to the effect of Jack's Return, but I had to name it The Lull, man, because this is where, funny enough, they had to cut off, 13 episodes and then the next 7 episodes. And it just felt like coming back, except for one episode, which I'll talk about in a second, it felt like those next few were like, dude, what are we doing? We're just spinning our wheels. Because there were 6 episodes left, something like that. And it was like 2 episodes worth were just standalone kind of, they weren't even great. Like they were standalone episodes that were just a regular mystery, and we kept being like, is something going to happen? And then the biggest thing to come out of it was Amara would think about it, and Jack was going to die. But we kind of already maybe expected that anyway. So it didn't really feel like there was a whole lot going on in those episodes. I will say, one, with Jack coming back and trying to get all of his powers together, we have a return of Ruby and Meg, which was really awesome. The other thing is Last Holiday, one of the an instant classic episode where Sam and Dean get to celebrate all the holidays and, their birthdays. And I mean, it was just one of the best episodes we've had in a very long time. I thoroughly enjoyed that episode. And then I was like, all right, now that we've had another standalone, let's get back to the plot. And then, 3 episodes later, they do. Here's where we get into the final showdown. We have 3 episodes left, basically, besides the last episode. And we gotta defeat Chuck. We also have Amara. We also have the Empty and Billy and Jack and Sam and Dean and Cass. And oh my god, how are we gonna do this in 3 episodes and also bring a bunch of people back? I don't know how they were planning on doing all of that when COVID wasn't a thing. But let's talk about this a little bit. I think that actually those last 3 episodes were really good. They were really good. They just felt rushed. I wish they had expanded the final showdown to a bunch of episodes, like 5 episodes. They didn't, but I thought that they were good. Sam and Dean, like, being in each other's way, and Dean pulling the gun on Sam and maybe possibly killing him. That being Chuck's new ending was really inventive. I thought that was really, really cool. And I was like this the entire time of that scene. And then, of course, Jack's about to blow. And, it just, the whole thing was so suspenseful. I loved it. My only problem with the episode was Amara says to Chuck that they were able to bind him in the bunker. We never saw that. And that's one of those things that I'm like, okay, they're just throwing stuff in now because they're running out of time. And if they had just given themselves more time, it would have been better. My other problem was that the angels in heaven are fanboys who ask God for his autograph. Then you get Despair, and that is like Infinity War. But it was really good. I did not see that coming. Not only just all of their friends disappearing and all the other hunters, and we finally, oh my god, we get Donna and Bobby, and we hear Jody on the phone, and I know they couldn't do a whole lot, but we still were able to get a bunch of those people. And Charlie, it was great. But then you get the sadness of, it was kind of like Mystery Spot because it was so fun, and then everybody just disappears, and it wasn't even just them. It was everyone. And I was like, that is a really interesting twist. The highlight of that episode, Cass. That's his last episode, and we didn't know it. So, and it was a brilliant move to have his being forced into the empty at some point in the rest of his existence be the thing that saves Dean and be the thing that takes out Billy. That was really great. The only problem is that a lot of people are offended by the fact that they basically confirmed Destiel, which, by the way, is pretty cool, then killed him. I think it was just poor timing, because it worked for the plot, it worked for the character, it was just a poor timing. If they were going to do it, they should have done it earlier, or not at all. My thinking, though, is honestly, it's confirmed on the website as canon, but I didn't think that at all when I first saw it. I thought he was saying I love you as a brother, because he never really actually expressed that himself. And I know he's always had a closer bond with Dean than Sam, but I didn't actually get that myself. It being canon is cool with me, but if they were going to do it, they should have done it earlier. But oh my god, Misha in that scene, he killed it. He just killed it. And then we get Inherit the Earth, and at that point you're like, how are you going to wrap all of this up? It's one of those that I was like, at this point, I mean, if they don't bring in Jesse, they're not going to. Jesse, like the Antichrist from season 5. When Jack said, I feel a presence, and it was like, who could be the only presence in the rest of the world that he could feel who wouldn't have been destroyed by God? And I'm like, that's gotta be Jesse. When it was Adam, I was like, okay, like as Michael, I was like, okay, that works too. And that's cool, bringing him back again. But like, they had a major missed opportunity not bringing Jesse back, at least in my opinion. Also, we get Lucifer again. Of course, they had to bring him back like one more time because he's in like half the seasons now. The final scene is just, it's brutal, man. And you got to know Jack's about to do something, because normally you have like they turn their back on somebody and then it's like, oh, they're all the way back here and they're probably knocked out, but we haven't seen them for a minute, and he stabs him in the back. But Jack was like not seen for like a good minute while God is just wailing on the Winchesters, which my mom was like, I can't watch this anymore because just And then Jack powers up, and oh my god, I didn't know what was going on at first, but I was like, that was really brilliant. For this episode and the next episode, for that episode being rewritten because of COVID and not being able to do what they were going to do, which was probably have like an end game worth of like everyone coming together to fight God, I think that was pretty good. I really wish, though, that they had done more of the endings that Chuck was planning. Because those were really hyping me up, and then they didn't do them at all. Like, I wish that before Chuck had started to wail on them himself, I think that he should have had the Winchesters fight each other, which is really what it felt like it was going to come to. Like, he should have been like, you know what, fine. You know what, I'm not going to do it. You guys are going to fight each other. And he snaps his finger, and Sam's soul disappears again. Or Dean gets the mark again. Or you have a bunch of Leviathans coming at them. Something that, would have been a lot of callbacks, which is weird because Supernatural's been all about nostalgia and callbacks for their successes the last couple of years. And so the fact that in the end they didn't use callbacks as much as they could have was weird for me. But I think it was a really good concept to have Jack take the powers and become the new god, which is, I had guessed that all along since Jack came back that might have happened some way or another. But that was really interesting. Although while I was watching it, I did think this looks kind of familiar. Also, the fact that all of season 5 was like Michael versus Lucifer and like who's gonna win in this entire apocalyptic battle, and then the same thing happens within like 4 minutes of this episode. It's a little underwhelming. So the season overall. Let's start with the cons. They needed to bring a lot, and it was a very, very steep challenge to meet. And I think they did okay. I feel like they definitely could have added more. Obviously, they didn't know COVID was coming, and I think they were saving a lot of it till the end, but I feel like they could have... Obviously, they brought a lot of people in. I'll say that. But I feel like they could have done more in little details, especially towards the end. Like I already mentioned, Jesse. That was probably the biggest one. But there were little things for all these, like, if they wanted standalone cases, that's fine. But they should have done it for things that needed to be closed off. Like that Rougarou baby that was born because the Ruger's wife escaped in season 4. That baby would be like 11 now. Maybe you could do something with that. You know that monster, Amy, Sam's friend, that Dean killed. Her son came in and said, "When I grow up, I'm going to kill you." That would have been cool to have him come back. And so it was these little things that I was like, you could have done something that if you're going to have standalone episodes, at least meant a little bit more, than just this. I guess this is sort of like a Striga episode, which I appreciated, but also I would have appreciated it more had it been a Striga. But the pros are that they did bring a ton of people in. They brought in a lot of people, and that was really, really cool. And they had just a ton of, ups and downs and like what's it going to be, hyping people up, twists and turns, and the acting for it. Jared and Jensen in particular, amazing. Jared, I've always felt, has been the lesser of the two actors. Very close, but the lesser. But he brought it, man, especially towards the end there. And Jensen just blew it out of the water. I mean, his frustration for Chuck was just awesome. I will say, I don't know how I felt about Dean not completely forgiving Jack and saying that he wasn't part of the family. I felt that was very realistic, but I also was like, that sucks, man. Like, he's part of the family. It's not his fault that he lost his soul because he saved you. And also one of my favorite lines of the entire series. Are any of us winning? But we do get finality. Even without the last episode, which, at first we thought the 19th episode was it because, I mean, it was wrapped up very quickly. Like, everything. Like, Chuck was out of the picture, and, we were having, like, the montage of flashbacks, and my mom was like, is this the last episode? And I was like, I mean, they didn't play Carry On My Wayward Son, so I don't think so. It wrapped up very quickly, but it did give finality. And what I mean is, the writing is over, and Jack controls heaven, Rowena controls hell, Cass is in the empty, as far as I know, unless he was brought out by Jack, but they kind of have reign of the whole universe, which is cool, except for maybe Purgatory, but even then they have Benny there. So they kind of have friends in high and low places. So season 15, a lot of fun, a lot of twists and turns. If there was a major misstep, it is probably a misstep that Supernatural's done a few times, but it was specifically in this season, is it was all over the place. And they do this thing where they introduce something and they get the fans hyped about it, and then they don't follow through with it. It's just like, whatever. Like Ruby. Cass said, I'll get you out if you give me the location of the little, what was it called? The Obscurum. And we never went back to her. There was just little things that they kept bringing up that they either took away really quick, which I was fine with, because it's like, okay, we're just, by this point, and I'll talk about this in the In Defense of, by this point, we're just doing it, Or they brought it up and then never even addressed it again. So, I don't know, it was a little all over the place, like they didn't plan it out very well, and they probably should have given more attention to some details. They probably should have planned out more of the entire thing. But I will say I give props to them because COVID, let's be honest, COVID fucked everything up. And these last 2 episodes, I think for what they had to work with, they did okay. They could have been better, but I think they did okay. So this was all of my thoughts on season 15. All of the emotions will come in the next episode when I talk about the last episode of Supernatural. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you like season 15? Did you hate it? Because I know some people had a lot of mixed thoughts on it. What was your favorite return of season 15? And what was your favorite twist? Did you think that Chuck lived up to the name of, the greatest villain being God? Let me know what you think. And as always, keep your hopes high, stress low, and TV shows right in the middle. I will say that was a clever idea on the part of the writers to make God the villain as well, because him writing all of their stories kind of gives the writers an out to be able to be like, this is why we could do all of the stuff that we wanted to do, even if it didn't make sense. It's because Chuck wanted it done. Or this is why the writing was kind of here and there. It wasn't the best because Chuck was slipping up. He was losing his grip on the writing. He was putting himself too much into the story. So maybe that was kind of clever.